So, whenever we talk about transport, we talk a lot about trains and trams. Now, of course, trains, obvious to everyone, fastest way to get from A to B, one side to the other country, the quickest you can probably do it without taking a plane. Um, and if we want to reduce our, CO2 emissions, trains are the best way to do that. I don't even know how many times I've talked about making either videos or indirectly mentioning how much we need HS2 to be built because you cannot escape not building HS2. Unfortunately, just the way of the things, even as we now see Keir Starmer saying, well, actually, we might be bringing back HS2. So, hey, fingers crossed on that one. But no, we do need not only just, big intercity, interregional trains and services brought back. We also need trams as well. Trams also very good way of getting and improving sort of public transport, getting people from the populated areas to other populated areas to getting people where they need to be. But something we often, and I will admit we do not often talked about, is buses. But with the fact that you've now got Labour regional mayors using their powers to bring bus services back under public control. And you are seeing, especially in Manchester, the whole B network, which I think is coming up to its first anniversary in a couple of weeks' time. Massively popular, massively successful. They've had a massive increase in, shockingly, people taking the bus. Who knew that if you created a reliable bus network, people would use it? you know, the horror, the shock, you know. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, as always, before we do get on to talking about more about sort of buses today, and of course the success of some of these bus networks that have been created by regional mayors, not just in Manchester, but of also Sadiq Khan as well, because he created another bus network which also has not been highlighted, and I think should be highlighted because it is been a rousing success that doesn't get highlighted enough. And remember, every other regional mayor put this in their manifesto, bringing back bus services into public control, meaning that the only regional mayor not bringing public bus services back under public control is currently Ben Houchin. So, maybe a consideration for next time. Why is he not doing that? Well, of course, because he's obsessed with his Freeport, as he always has been for the past couple of elections. And of course, even then, we can hope that the auditors, shall we say, pay a visit to, shall we say, the officers there relatively soon. Fingers crossed on that one as well. But of course, we'll keep an eye open for when that happens as well. But anyway, back to the buses. So, of course, before we do go diving into this as well, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, there's the Patreon page, there is the Pony Club down below as well. And of course, there's a YouTube thank you button as well. So thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel that way. So let's crack on then into this, because I think this is well worth highlighting. So, can you make everything better with a bus? I can't speak for everyone, says Janet McCall of 74 on board the SL3 Superloop service from Thamesmead Shopping Centre on her way home to Bexheath in southeast London. But she says this has been an absolute godsend for us. The Superloop, a now psychedelic branded network of express orbital buses dreamed up by the London Mayor Sadiq Khan at the height of the opposition to ULEZ, has now been in running for just over a year and attempting to provide a now better public transport for the capital's outer boroughs. McLaughlin's trip to the shop now takes 14 minutes rather than the 35 minutes on the 401 bus she previously used. She said it's so much easier. Otherwise, it was just stop after stop. and the growth in passenger numbers in the corridors where the Superloop operates is also likewise whizzing past the rest of the bus network at an 11% annually compared with 2% according to Transport for London. So shockingly, if you build these Superloops or these express bus services, people use them because it's okay. And bear in mind, this is actually the exact same philosophy of building HS2, that you have this express fast bus service, but you also have the more slower multiple stop ones as well. And again, it's all part of thinking about an interconnected bus service of where do people go? Where do they travel to? Maybe you need an express bus which only stops at this stop and this stop. Well, meanwhile, you also have like a local bus service that runs along maybe that same route as well, but that sort of gets the local traffic, and then people can get on like the Superloop bus later on down the line and then carry on with their express journey. That's how we need to be thinking about public transport. So it is good that you have these sort of super hyper buses, but these express buses that do these types of journey. And bear in mind, already some of these types of buses do exist. It's not like this is a completely new invention, but it's the fact that these buses, prior to this, the private companies that own these haven't really been as forthcoming to create said bus routes. But shock horror, public bus service here in London, passenger numbers increasing over 11% compared with a 2% on other TfL bus routes. You can't tell me this hasn't been a success. And also, must be pointed out, hardly ever gets talked about. Why? Because as we pointed out there in that article, brought up during the height of the anti-ULEZ stuff. So for all these people complaining about ULEZ, this is where the money has gone. Into a public transport service that, guess what, people are using. Anyway, I also want to bring up this as well. In Greater Manchester, the B network, because this is something else we talked about earlier, the work of Cairns' also fellow Labour Mayor, Andy Burnham, now also approaching its anniversary milestone, with the first swathe of franchised bus routes started running out to Bolton and Wigan over last September, have now seen a leap in patronage too, up 5% in 6 months, with significantly more services now running to schedule. So, as you can see, investing in these bus routes, this whole plan that a lot of these regional mayors had of bringing bus services back into these, which, bear in mind, Labour also want to make it easier for regional mayors to do. This is something else, new powers that they will be getting soon. So you are going to be seeing these types of bus services rolled out more. That can only be good. And you've seen the data there. 6 months improved in 5% passenger numbers. 11% in London. Of course, there's more people in London and more people, likely to use it. Public transport, as we've said for years, London has been gifted almost in a way. You've won the public transport lottery if you are in London, because you get like what I think it's like 200 quid per person spent in public transport for London, where outside of that it's like less than 100. So congratulations, I suppose. But this is something that does need to be readdressed. This is why, again, we need HS2. This is why, so much more stuff. And again, it's not just building HS2. One of the big things, especially that would help bring rail prices down, the fact that you have all these multiple ticketing things. So unifying the ticketing system into one organization rather than multiple would be a massive step in the right direction, which would also, I think, certainly help bring fares down as well. But again, baby steps. I think we are going, especially in public transport, we are seeing really going in the right direction. And I think that is good because public transport, really important for a lot of people out there. And I think the better public transport it is, the more, of course, that gets people moving about, etc. And I've often spoken about, I think, the statistic in South Yorkshire that 1 in 5 people will turn down a job, go through all the rigmarole of applying, the interviews, etc. But when they get offered the job, they turn it down because they can't get there because of, unfortunately, South Yorkshire's very, very poor track record of transport. Once again, thank you to Margaret Thatcher for doing that. Something which, bear in mind, London was exempt from at the time. But Manchester bringing all these things back that they used to have. So we'll get on it. We've seen Supertram brought back into public ownership here in South Yorkshire. And I've spoken about this before, the promise of Supertram, extending it all over South Yorkshire, I think would be a good thing. I think it would be an amazing thing to do if that can get up and running off the ground. So we'll see. The trams in Leeds, I know that has been like a ghost project and talked about for years in Leeds, but it would be finally amazing to actually see that happen in Leeds if Leeds finally got a tram network. But again, we'll see what happens. Maybe the difference is actually getting a regional mayor. Maybe it's the regional mayor that will finally make these things happen. Who knows? Maybe we'll finally see trams in Leeds after them talked about for so long, for so many years. But who knows? We'll see what happens. But as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.